izleyen, dinleyen değerli katılımcılar, Ege Ekonomiyi Geliştirme Vakfı ve Özgencil Grup İşbirliği ile İzmir
The participants who are watching and listening to us in front of their screens, welcome to the last session of the Aegean Economic Forum, which is supported by Aegean Economy Development Foundation and Özgencil Group Corporation, Izmir Metropolitan Municipality, Izmir Chamber of Commerce, Aegean Exporters Associations, İzdoğa Strategic Partnership, Izmir Industrialists and Businessmen Association, Izmir Commodity Exchange, Aegean Industrialists and Businessmen Association, with the, again, sponsorship of the Union of Chambers of Tradesmen and Craftsmen of Izmir, Çimentaş Group, Aegean Region Chamber of Industry, Aegean Young Businessmen Association, Aegean Free Zone Founder and Operator Incorporation, and Vilo and Zorla Holding, and the Young newspaper. We would like to once again welcome you to the closing session on the last day of the 5th Aegean Economic Forum Conference. We would like to welcome you all once again, and I'd like to remind you of that there's going to be simultaneous interpretation during our session. Our guests would like to listen to the broadcast complete in English. They can switch to the YouTube channel of the Aegean Economic Forum. Distinguished guests, distinguished participants, I'd like to remind you one last time before we go to the session, you can send us your comments and questions during the session. You can send your questions using the hashtag AEF 2021, and we will be talking about the magnet of tourism gastronomy, and I'd like to invite our guests, Nedim Atilla, a culinary researcher, and Ebru Koralım, one of the board of members of Tourism Restaurant Investors and Gastronomy, and Zekeriya Mutlu from Izmir Chamber and Unions of Craftsmen, and also Tradesman, Osman
Chef, the Kitchen Project,
Sezer Oğuz Urla Restaurant Chief and Owner, and also Aylin Yazıcıoğlu, Chief and the Kitchen Project Owner, and Nuray Türker from Karabük University. I would like to invite them to the stage, and I give the floor to Ms. Akbaş. Thank you very much, Ebru Hanım. Thank you so much. This is the closing session, last session of Aegean Economic Forum. I'm sure that it's going to be a great session. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome all our speakers. Yes, they say that if you want to be loved by a man, then you have to be serving first and foremost his stomach, then you have to be serving to his heart. Yes, maybe I'll start with a bit romantic words, but we know that tourism's success lies at the heart of gastronomy. We have certain roles, that's why I just wanted to give you this introduction. We're going to be discussing gastronomy for a long time, and there are great examples. Aylin Hanım, Osman Bey, they will be giving us some practical examples. I'm sure that they can add too much to the perceptions of the youngsters. But generally speaking, what does gastronomy mean for tourism? I've tried to summarize it very shortly, but Zekeriya Bey, can you please have the general framework together with you, because as I know, tourism has been very important for us, and during this pandemic period, we have understood its value more and more, and how to market the country. Should we be marketing the cities? Should we be marketing the values? What should we do? Many countries are asking the same questions when they try to come up with their strategies, but we have actually discovered ourselves very lately, because we have great tastes in Anatolian region, and there are great tastes, different tastes in every part of Turkey, and gastronomy is a great key, actually. So I want you to give you your perspective. What is the importance of gastronomy for Turkey? Thank you very much. Thank you so much. First and foremost, I wish that is going to be a great session for everyone. Firstly, I'd like to extend my gratitude to Mr. Susam. I want to thank Mr. Susam because each and every year we are holding Aegean Economic Forum. Thanks to this forum, we are contributing to country's economy and also Aegean regions and also the cities of Aegean region. Thank you very much. You have contributed a lot to the economy and development of Aegean regions. Thank Aegean region cities. Thank you so much. I'd like to once again thank everyone, and again, Board of Directors, especially Mr. Susam. And another gratitude goes goes to you and my dear panelists, everyone here in this session. I'd like to thank you. And we have 120 different chambers and also 300,000 craftsmen and artisans. And for that reason, this session is at utmost important for us. And I believe that there are many things that we can learn in this session, and we might actually see your points as guidelines for us. So once again, first and foremost, I'd like to thank you, Ms. Buse, and our senior, one of our masters. When you talk about gastronomy in Izmir, we will be listening to Nedim. And up until this day, Nedim has always paved the way for us, and Nedim has actually drawn the map for us, and he has contributed a lot to our chamber of craftsmen. And I'm really happy to be with him in this session. And Osman Bey, you all know him. Osman Bey comes from Old Urla, so he has succeeded in being a great brand, and he's a source of pride for us. And everything that is going to mention here will again be accepted as targets and goals for us. And we will be listening to Mr. Nuray. We will learn a lot from her speech, and Aylin Hanım will be setting new targets for us. And in advance, I'd like to thank everyone one by one. And of course, this is the closing session, last session, and we will be discussing gastronomy as the magnet of tourism. We know that as the Chamber of Craftsmen, artisans, we need to find a way how people can get use of gastronomy. How can the gastronomy help tourism? And how can these local traditional restaurants create advantage for tourism? So when you visit a country, or else when foreign tourists come to our country, it's very natural that when a person goes a journey, they have certain targets, right? For instance, they want to have holiday tourism, or else sea tourism and health tourism or history tourism. So they have certain sets of targets. So based on that, they actually plan their programs and plan their journeys. And gastronomy is an indispensable part of this journey. But very recently, gastronomy has also triggered tourism, and gastronomy has taken a position which is shaping tourism. For that reason, gastronomy is the magnet of tourism. Another feature of gastronomy is that, whether you agree with me or not, I'm not sure, but tourists coming to a country, doesn't matter. Maybe health should be placed at a certain position, because health tourism could be even outperforming gastronomy tourism. Many people prefer our country for health issues, and they also have this health holidays and health tourism. They come to Turkey as tourists, and they can also meet their health needs. So the most influential part of tourism could be gastronomy, for instance. I mean, when a person comes to a country, so he might pay a visit to a museum, then he pays for the entry ticket. But when it comes to gastronomy, it's something else, because in the morning there's breakfast and lunch and then dinner, and so tourists pay for gastronomic experiences, and they can contribute a lot to the country's revenues. For that reason, actually, gastronomy acts as a magnet in tourism sector. For instance, in domestic tourism, in recent days, Turkish Airlines and some other airlines advertisements were very much about gastronomical features of certain cities. For instance, you can go to Gaziantep just to eat baklava, for instance, or you can go to Adana to have a kebab, for instance. So actually, gastronomy has created huge dynamism within the country. In other countries, like Far Eastern countries, China, Japan, Thailand, and some other countries, they are also bringing tourism with gastronomy and diplomacy together, and they have developed a lot in their tourism revenues. So, for instance, sushi-related marketing acts, and also in Thailand, we know that there are certain local tastes. And again, when we look at Italy, there is a pizza and pasta marketing, promotional activities, and Roma, as you know, Roman ice cream, and France has its cookies. So tourism choices are very much affected by gastronomy. We know that people put gastronomy to the forefront, and maybe it's the most important item when they make their holiday plans. So for the tourism, gastronomy is very crucial. Gastronomy is not something about tasting some food, but it's also about sharing. It's also about getting together, and it's again about bringing people with this culture of eating, culinary, and people can get even closer with this culture. So this international cultural intersection points and desire of people being together could also be boosted by gastronomy. From time to time, as you all know, gastronomy is used very frequently on diplomacy purposes as well. So statespeople, politicians, when they visit another country, they are served with the traditional food, and they are also hosted with some traditional ways. For instance, when people go to China, they are served Beijing duck, for instance, and also important people, politicians, statespeople, when they go to a country, they are hosted and welcomed with the language of diplomacy, which is gastronomy again. So it can also contribute in the peace of the world. And it can also contribute to the income of the countries. Gastronomy must be seen like this, because as I've stated before, and especially in the gastronomy area, we know that there's too much expenditures, and gastronomy could be an income generating way of attracting tourists again. And artisans, craftsmen, local restaurant owners, and operators, they are very important for us. So they should prove their talents. Without those restaurants, without those working places, it is not possible to succeed in gastronomy. But of course, by doing this, we should not forget about being a brand. So from farm to fork, we have to share this journey with our customers, and hygiene and sanitation must be at the forefront, and we have to be a world brand. And in addition to that, we can also serve and direct people with their with the traditional food that we provide. And I want to give you an example, and I'll give the floor to other friends of mine. I'm from Cappadocia, by the way, and tourists, when they come to Nevşehir, I've seen that they have this desire. We have traditional food.
The tourists say that when we are in Nevşehir, they say that they want to make that dish. Just tell me where we have to buy the materials, and how am I going to convert it into a food? So we also give them our traditional clothes, and they dress like us, and they prepare the food as if they were Turkish, that they were from people from Nevşehir. And so this is how they get entertained, and then we also receive the foreign currency as well. This is how the economy is turning as well. That's why the tourism and gastronomy and being a brand is so important, and that's the reason why gastronomy is an area where people get closer to by abiding by the rules of hygiene and being as a brand. Not only the countries, but also cities are becoming very prominent as well. And the gastronomy becomes important of that city. For instance, when you go to Italy, Rome, you think about gelato, and when you go to Malta, you think about seafood. When you come to Turkey, you think about baklava, for instance. Taking a look to this from this point of view, then it really makes a contribution to the country. We need to give importance to it. We need to pay a lot of effort for that. And with these thoughts, I would like to, I expect now your opinions. If there's anything that we can do, we'll be more than happy. Thank you very much. Actually, you are bringing up a strategic point of view. And if Rome has gelato, you say we have baklava. And of course, in action, what do we have to do in order to take that brand leading in the world? So you gave a lot of information about what gastronomy is in the end of the day. Of course, one of the things that we are tackling upon is the income of it, the revenue that we do. Ms. Nuray, you have made an announcement. Rather than increase the number of tourists, we need to increase the amount of our incomes. So when you take a look to, we cannot get the same productivity as much as people are coming to Turkey. Gastronomy was already been explained how much important it is, and it is bringing up a new pathway. What type of an contribution would you like to make in that manner? Yes, all of the expenditures, when we take into consideration of all these expenditures, the expenditures of the tourists at about 25% or 20% is made for food and beverages and gastronomy. So it can be 1/3. And that's the reason why when you have a traveling of 100 liras, 20 or 30% is consumed for gastronomy in the areas that they travel to. But it happens to be that also we have to talk about a country like Turkey, which has 50 million visits before COVID. Of course, COVID was a very important country in the market of tourism. Apart from those that are traveling for gastronomy, of course, there are people who are coming for different aspects to this country, but of course they're going to consume food and beverages. And taking into consideration this matter, I believe gastronomy is very much important for actually receiving an income. Of course, gastronomy tourism those who come from for the field of gastronomy as a tourist bring more money, of course. And of course, gastronomy is something that we need to consider quite important. And that happens to be that it's also very much important to diversify the subject cases for Turkey. There are plenty of possibilities. We have many different food. There are approximately 19,000 Turkish food. So that's a great richness. And I think that we are not using this field properly in order to develop the gastronomy field. These values, these assets have to be used in a very proper way. And the numbers also show this to us. Of course, we are going to question the reason, and we are going to be talking about how to actually make it more attractive, and we need to actually localize ourselves properly. Mr. Nedim, yes, we were talking about richness, and Ms. Nedim, I know that you are regarding this matter from this point of view as well. So you said that we are sitting on a great richness, but of course, these are relative concepts. What type of a richness do we talk about? So what do we have in gastronomy? The numbers are set by our previous speaker, but I'm sure that you're going to make a great contribution about this. Of course, what type of richnesses are going to be things that you are going to explain, but there's something that we, in areas that we are lagging behind. Oh, there's such a question. So where to start? Now listen. Now, since we're talking about the magnet of tourism, we first of all have to agree upon that in behind every destination, definitely, if it were gastronomy tourism or other things, hundreds of years, people have built up and established stories, traditions, efforts, and on the other hand, flavors, of course. And we have very important cooks here amongst us. The reason why we have these important cooks is because they are giving respect to the tradition, to the local culture, and the effort that they pay. Without that effort, it wouldn't be possible to be achieved by their side. Now, the humanity, by the way, I have to emphasize as well, the humanity today. Yes, I know that the pandemic has changed a lot of things, but we know the 2019 numbers very well. Those who are traveling around the world, out of 100 tourists, only 22 travel for gastronomy, and that number is increasing every day, according to the World Tourism Organization. It was at 7% previously, but now we see that the number is increasing, and definitely those who want to be in a gastronomic story has reached up to 22% nowadays. And the amount that they are spending, according to the gastronomy numbers, is much more than the 78% that come for different purposes as a tourist. But of course, the gastronomy tourists look for quality. They are looking for other qualifications. Everybody has their own type of traveling instincts, and this is a right indeed. We all want to go to some place in the world, but the owner or the gastronomy buyer doesn't have an actually kind of a worry for the future. They wouldn't worry about how much money they are going to spend. They are searching for qualified food and dishes. So when they return back to their home, they are going to talk about a story, and they are going to share a gastronomic experience. Of course, gastronomy is one of the most important part of tourism, but we need to also not every local culture's reality can be really easily understood. Since I'm also a journalist, as for slow food, we also have an idea of slow traveling. This is what we are talking and debating about. And where we are now is this. In a gastronomy destination, the producers that give very much importance to their local cultures, the hosts, the cooks, the chefs, and the products, the manufacturing areas, the grocery shops, all of them, just like the Ottoman Empire has done, or all the chefs that are doing in Urla. For instance, if you are making artichokes at this and manufactured at the proper time in the season of artichoke, people follow it. When I go to Italy, or wine, or olive oil, or dairy, or meat, or legumes, for instance, there are people that are following their seasons. The Italians, for instance, are actually reflecting it to their daily lives. And south of France do the same thing as well. And they're not doing mass tourism. Their purpose is not mass tourism at all. They say that for 2,000 years. We are presenting you an evolution coming from ancient Rome. This is what they say. Since Rome, what we present you, there's a culture that has been flourished. Later on, Greece and Turkey as well can say. We all can say different things. We can easily say as Anatolia, as Turkey, that Göbekli Tepe, after the last final exploration findings, for the first time we have understood and explored that beer was first of all drinking in Anatolia. In the Karacaboy Valley, there's a real Eden 12,000 years ago before Christ. Wheat was first of all been actually domesticated. Rye has been domesticated for the first time in Anatolia. So just like South France, the people of South France bring up the concept of Rome, we have to bring up this concept that we have in Anatolia. But there's also something that we need to do as well, definitely. The Western Anatolia shores, the coastal lines where philosophy has been flourished. We know where the religion has flourished, which is the Middle Eastern geography. And there are, of course, immense amounts of delicious foods. But on the other hand, we know it. We feel we have this type of culture. But on the other hand, we also have the Western Anatolian philosophical culture as well. And they have also. This is also a very important aspect that we can bring up. If you spend time for philosophy, then you spend time also for cooking. And in Miletos, in Didyma, close to the big meander in the antique Pergamon, and in Ephesus, and also in the center of Izmir, Smyrna, good food, eat good and live good are the fundamentals, and it goes back to 2,500 years ago. We were bringing this up to the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, but they do not listen to us. But whatever the case is, one day they will listen to us anyway. And those who are interested in gastronomic destinations, we need to catch them, and in order to facilitate the way they come here, it totally depends on the stories that we bring for these people. Of course, the cuisine of Istanbul is totally different, but then we have to also go to different areas, and then we go to the we listen to the myths of Homeros. Now, Homeros has told us these stories, and let us eat what he ate. And if we go a little bit down to Pergamon, the father of pharmacy, Galion, for instance, was talking about how the wild weeds have healed people. And when we come to Ephesus, for instance, there are, in Izmir, for instance, there are so many food that have been consumed in the past, and today are still consumed. In Ephesus, for instance, Herodotus was living there, and we can talk about what he ate. And when we come to a little bit to the southern part of the Aegean Sea, we can talk about the mussels that have been catched and how they have been presented to the kings and queens with a color of purple. And as we go through the shores, there were pools for sea fish. And in Menteşe pool, we can actually give, there's also another story that we can talk about. If we can combine these historical stories together with our cuisine, then we can catch everybody. So we are definitely stronger. We have stronger gastronomic memory compared to French, Italians, or the Greek. Is everybody aware of this? Or does everybody know what they're doing in their kitchen? They do not know for how long these dishes have been cooked. Perhaps maybe they do not know, but we do know it. Anatolia does have a cultural richness, and it is combined together with the cuisine. And if we can explain the cultural history, then we will do an immense job. And of course, there are so many things to do within this context. The gastronomy tourism destination feel has to be given. Yes, thank you very much. But you are talking about how we can create a systematic, and you're talking about how history can be a complementary to gastronomy as well. So of course definitely there is the reason why we call it as a magnet. There's a reason, and on the other hand, there's a story that's very much important. Mr. Osman has to leave early. I just want to say one phrase, and then I'm giving the floor to our friends. Whichever food is used by whichever chef of gastronomy has to actually own the cultural richness. That's true. So we need to focus ourselves. Actually, there's a confusion as well when we take a look to the matter. Of course, should tourism be done from one side, from a one-sided area? But you wonderfully actually depicted the situation, and it has a story here. As in this land, we do have a lot of possibilities. And we have the power, we have the strength about this. And of course, the locals are very much available of this. And all of the Izmir restaurants are actually like in history, I can say. Indeed, there are plenty of things that you can actually contribute to. Of course, the supply and demand are also determining the strategy. It is also said that, of course, the Cappadocia, I was there too, it's really beautiful, but it can be even better. It can be renowned better. I am a person who loves to travel the world and loves to eat different dishes. And also another strategy is that people can actually experience these dishes. I also would like to learn from Mr. Osman and also Mr. Ayn and Ebru what they think about this. But in order to be a global brand, what type of a strategy should we actually make? And Mr. Osman, I would like to give the floor to you first because you do not have much time and we have a lot of speakers, so we need to use our time properly.
Öncelikle bu konuşmaya beni davet ettiğiniz için herkese çok teşekkür ederim. Herkes çok güzel.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this session. Everyone has contributed greatly, and I'll try to give my perspective while Nedim and Zekeriya were talking. I've taken some notes and I'll try to give my perspective.
Olduğu bu ülkede maalesef daha çok yeni anlaşıldı.
Unfortunately, we have just got to understand the importance of gastronomy. The magnet of tourism being gastronomy has just been understood. So we have to open more space for new generations because they've understood it very well. So what does the world do and what do we do? Actually, the answers to these questions are quite different from one another, because when we are invited to other platforms to listen to us, we say the same things. However, we haven't come even a very shortest distance up until this date. And the examples that have been given here in our promotional offices, they say that mantı, Turkish pastry, and kebab, and they are talking about how to maybe promote and market these Turkish type ravioli and kebab to other countries. If you are talking about gastronomy as the magnet of tourism, you have to be in the league of foreigners. I mean, the Turkish type of ravioli, gastronomy tourists, they don't think of eating Turkish type of ravioli in the first day that they come here. When we say gastronomic tourists, they come to Turkey, for instance, they come to a great hotel. Generally, they eat their meals in the first or the second day, and after that, in the morning, they make their breakfasts and they buy certain things for their houses. They go to olive oil shop and wine shop. So they carry out a lot of activities about eating and drinking, about culinary experience. So this is my experience. Local restaurants are also visited. So this is something very holistic. But the first thing which takes the attention of the tourists are the chef restaurants of that country. While we do that, countries should be also contributing to the processes. But this is not something very difficult. We should not be talking about it for 2 decades or 3 decades. We can do this with a very fast integration. But Italy, for instance, one of the very close climates to us, when we pick off this Italian flag and Italian pizza, think of it as a strategy. For instance, that flags green comes from the basil, and white comes from mozzarella, and red comes from the tomato. So in Turkey, no one comes to eat some maybe, vegetable food like celery or celery, for instance. They just come to Kemeraltı or some other places to have a great pizza. So how can we enable this? I think education and training is very crucial here, even though our schools for culinary gastronomy is very crucial. We know that, but 75% of the professionals in this profession just leave this profession because of their hardships and challenges of this profession. Whereas what we have seen that some of the students, they are trained in the schools of culinaries, but they don't have enough number of cuisines or cooks or ovens, so they are not learning certain things. When a foreigner in turn comes to our restaurant, for instance, they can easily differentiate the products and applied recipes. However, we have some students, they cannot differentiate the products. So here, in this respect, quantity wise, we should be talking about quality, not the quantity. So sometimes our children, our students cannot differentiate lettuce and rocket from one another. So I'd like to, of course, give you a very pink and rosy picture, but I couldn't, I'm sorry. So you're going to leave very soon, that's why I just wanted to interrupt. So how does world to see us? Okay, I'll also connect my speech towards that. What is the perception of the world towards that? It's all about support. So you can think of it like that. Old Urla, this is our restaurant, for instance. During summertime, we attract too many customers, yes. And in Urla, even the real estate prices could be doubled or tripled because of our restaurant. So if you come to Old Urla today, for instance, if you try to come with a car which is like a buggy or bucket, that you can't enter into the street. But in Denmark, in Copenhagen, for instance, they don't have a great culinary cuisine like us. However, when you look at the tourism income in our country, and when you have a look at the Copenhagen cuisines income generation, you can see a huge difference, because in a good restaurant, 200 euros could be paid. But today, we are talking about 2,000 TLs, 3,000 TLs, but in upper segment restaurants in Turkey, it's at the level of 50 euros. Unfortunately, we can't increase that income. So there is this 5 or 6 times difference. So how does the restaurant in those countries work? It can only function with the support of the state, especially in Denmark. There is a very huge support. And other than this support of the state, when these restaurants come to a certain stage, they are proliferating actually and can become better restaurants. And when you want to go to, for instance, Istanbul on your way from Izmir to Istanbul, you can't find any good restaurants that you can list me for 5. You can't list me at maximum 5 restaurants, unfortunately. It takes 8 hours, but you can't find a good restaurant. For instance, when tourists come to Turkey, they go to Gaziantep, but is there any great place that you can have your dinner other than eating kebab? The number of the foreigners, the one would like to drink wine, there is not a choice for these people, unfortunately. But our local cuisines, our local traditional food, yes, this is very delicious. But again, it's all about training and education. We don't have resource. When we talk about the French cuisine is famous with its cookies. And in French cuisine, there is a great range of products, spectrum of products. When you go to France, in any bookshop, you can have your book and you can have a look at the book. You can see all the receipts of the food is the same, no matter what country or what place you are coming from. If you have the materials, ingredients, and if you have a bit talent, you can do whatever you want. It's the basic source. And on top of this basic source, there comes the upper segment books of the chef restaurants. I mean, it's not going to happen just with just one single chef restaurant. Little cafes and local traditional restaurants, and also good chefs. But first and foremost, we need to have good schools, culinary schools, and also we need to have great source books, textbooks, and of course, according to whom we're talking about great chefs. Great chefs should be found, and they should also be asked about their opinions. This is how I think, because of course the food connects us to one another. When we go to a place to have a dinner, we are actually searching that place just before a month. So let's say you want to go to Cappadocia or Ankara, or you want to go to Istanbul. You just call one of your friends and say, what can I eat in Istanbul, for instance? You ask your friend about that. Before you reach your hotel, you just start to make a research about your food you're going to eat. This is very important. And we should not just say, the best food is ours, the best sea is ours. No, we should not say that, because there is better than the best. There is always better in different places. So we need to appreciate what we have, and we need to modernize certain things. This is what we need. And yes, of course, the traditional, the old ones, the basic ones, we should never leave them, but we should also add certain modern things. When you look at the modern promotions, no one actually promotes Italy with their pizza, but Italian chefs are on the promotional campaigns. For instance, a Parmesan cheese is given to a chef, and that chef is actually describing the importance of that cheese. So, like Aydin has mentioned, this is something that we need to do. The Parmigiani is also described by someone, and mozzarella is described by some other person. So no one has their local shops just adjacent to one another. So, for instance, in Lyon, there are certain shops. In Sicily, there are some other places. So we should be cooperating and collaborating. We should not be hindering one another. And by supporting us, by supporting each other, we can bring our country's culinary gastronomy to better places. Thank you very much for giving this chance to me. Thank you very much. As an entrepreneur, as a good chef, what you have said is very valuable to us because only they both can work together, because when one fails, unfortunately, probability of others' success is very low. But you mentioned sources and means and possibilities. You are very right. We're going to say goodbye to you because we don't have time. But for our spectators, for the audience who are listening to us, maybe you can also give some hints. The ones who'd like to be a chef, because you are a great example. And what can you say? Thank you very much. So for the last 42 years, I was raised in a family of restaurant owners. I opened Old Urla just 3 years ago, but since my childhood, I've been in this business. So when you have a look at this situation again, rather than popular food competition programs, TV programs, rather than popular things, we have to be talking about the real concept of this profession, and local governments and the media should be providing support. Unless we do this, it's just only about chefs having cool items, tattoos on their bodies, wearing great garments on them, but it's not the case. But in French cuisine, we see, very clean and neat people cooking the dinner. But here, unfortunately, we have some chefs having tattoos on them and having, earrings on them. But it's not the case. The important thing is that whom we are giving as the examples to them, because on TVs there are some examples and people are just following those examples, but you may fail at the end. So in the past, how was it? They were saying that don't smoke, and for instance they were putting like a cross on the smokes. It was like a public ad, and I think chefs should also be on the TVs like these commercials. So for instance, when you have this chef program, just 2 weeks later, that person on the TV show is very much known and appreciated by everyone, and everyone wants to have a photo with that person. So the easiest way to promote these issues is to show them on TVs, and chefs and also experiences and cuisine could be also a topic for this these program sessions. Of course, we have to pave the way for youngsters, and we have to explain certain things to our employees. It's not only about having money. You can't see people as some commodities for generating income. Unless you explain certain things to these people, they can't learn anything. If they say, I graduated from culinary high school, if they say that we learned how to stuff the grape leaves, it's not possible. So I think we have to accelerate the training and education. And I think good chefs should be on the forefront. They should be taken as examples. Other than that, certain chefs just try to get enriched. That's it. Yes, this is not something very easy, because in the very early hours of the morning, you start till the end of the night, and you don't have holiday, you don't have special days. You try to do something. And in Turkey, people are very critical, because in every house we have good food, right? When a foreigner comes to a restaurant, even if it's some restaurant that is not very much appreciated by local people, foreigners are very much appreciating. But in Turkey, this is something very different. I mean, if the place is full, for instance, we tell them they have to wait, but they say that, but I am this person's cousin or someone. You have to be providing empty seats to them, even if you don't have the capacity. So actually having a restaurant is very crucial. Even if you have the potato puree in your restaurant, they compare it with their mother's potato puree, because Nuray Hanım's grandmother could also be doing better than that, etc. But in foreign countries, houses are very small and the rental prices are too much, and people actually eat their dinners in the restaurants. For that reason, their approaches and respect towards restaurants is very different. But in our houses, we always cook. That's why it's not very easy to make our people pleasant. But when a foreigner is taken to a very good local restaurant, when we provide them the traditional cuisine examples, they are impressed very much. So I think we have to take the ownership of our own cuisine and culinary values, and we have to do our best to take it even further places. But first and foremost, we need to get the collective support rather than the individual effort. We have to come together. A very serious board must be established. Real important people should be chosen, and maybe a commercial agency could be working just to market Turkish culinary. If it happens in that way, I believe we will have too much income. As you all know, tourists come to Antalya and they are just in a hotel just for 7 days. But when a gastronomy tourist comes to Turkey, they will be spending 10 times higher money than they spend in Antalya hotels, and they will be seeing our values, historic values, etc. So we have to be supporting new generation. Of course, we need to use all generation information. We have to hand those valuable things over to other nations and generations. Thank you very much. Aylan, before passing to you, I'd like to give the floor to Ebru, because of course we are going to listen to your story. But Ebru, you have said that for you, you have the title of the board member of Restaurant Entrepreneurs, and in the sector we know that there are some associations and also some other foundations, and previous speaker has said that we have to establish a board. And we know that I'm saying food, but of course, when I say food, of course, it is culinary, it is cuisine. But can we have a more holistic perspective? Maybe we need a board as well. I think we should have a ministry. I really believe in that. We should have a ministry of gastronomy. If it happens in that way, I believe we can have our story better, because it's not only about tourism. For our own society, we need some gastronomic enhancements. This is something that we need for ourselves, because we are located on a very, very fruitful and productive land. We have a great culture, and gastronomy is not something that we eat good food. No, it could be defined as eating good food, but from farm to fork in that value chain, gastronomy has affected almost 100 different dimensions of production. For that reason, I think this is a model for development. And I have been working on gastronomy for a long time. Yes, we know that tourism is very crucial and it is a magnet, but for our country, it is a different model. And gastronomy should be used as a leverage, and it's the part of creativity economy.
So while gastronomy, on the other hand, is growing at about 10% or 11%, so it's an interesting branch. Well, not. So of course, there are different types of restaurants with Michelin stars, but this shouldn't be something that we need to regard this matter as a whole. It is a modeling that goes back to rural areas, and for this, it has to be combined. Gastronomy has to be combined together with the sustainable development goals as well. And again, I would like to talk a little bit about the ministry. As you know, we have the Ministry and Culture and Tourism. Gastronomy is both part of culture and tourism, but we do feel it as well in economy and development. Let me go a little bit more in details. Of course, it's a choice of tourism, but it is also uh, following and supporting as a variety with other tourismic aspects, because it is determining the moment, because it's and whatever we do, for instance, you go to Louvre and you go to constantly to Paris, but you like to go and eat there, but each time you do not go and visit Louvre, or you do not go for shopping constantly, but a good food, a good cuisine shared with good friends is very much important for many of us. That's why gastronomy is so important. Of course, a right way of planning is necessary. So the municipality, the local administration, the state has to make that planning. And I believe that the state support is very much important. I can easily express that it has to be properly planned and the future vision has to be delivered. And not only should we talk about momentarily changes, but it's a whole lot of branch. And we also see that there are is 81 provinces and 7 regions, and no region is alike to each, of course. For each 81 provinces, we can have different contents of stories. 2 days ago, I have received a mail. The World Tourism Organization was talking about gastronomy. Actually, right now, the social media is bringing up a lot of opportunities, and a tourist can actually make a change in destination. That's what they said in that mail. Maybe sometimes you do not need a lot of campaigns. You need to have good contents. A little bit of populism, influences are sometimes important, but I believe that social media does have such a power right now, and we need to use it, and we should use it in from different fields and areas, not only from one single area. We all have to pay effort for this, I believe. And on the other hand, the rural training is also as much as important as the training of the students, because not only are we going to be talking about big cities, but on the other hand, also the families and also the people living in the rural areas are very much important in that manner. Yes, thank you very much. Actually, that culture has to be disseminated and distributed to the whole parts of the country. We do not have much time. We have limited time, as you know, but I'm going to listen to you, Ms. Aylin, as well, and Mr. Osman, and has said wonderful things in tourism, yes, in the past. Foreign models have been used in the past, but Mr. Osman has said, has given better ideas, actually. And what would be your contribution to this? There are wonderful examples around the world. Actually, what you say is very much valuable. And as you are in this business, you pretty much know what should be done. There's a standard is necessary. The world is going to somewhere else, and we are going to taking a different path. Well, as Mr. Nedim has said, Ms. Ebru has said, actually, there's also a historical point here. If we put this also, if we put the history here inside the cuisine, then everything changes. What is your observation about this? Thank you very much. It's a we have been talking about very interesting things, and I had the opportunity to take notes, and that note converts into a big, actually, work. And I believe I have really very much get benefited from all of these opinions, all of these thoughts. Now I I'm going to talk a little bit about the 0 point of the matter. Let us think from the beginning after all of these speakers. After we listen to all of these speakers, generally our promotions are a little before our promotions, before actually promoting our country. Let me tell you that in this geography, the first beer has, or the first bread, the first wine, whatever the first is possible here in Turkey, in Anatolia. So doesn't necessarily mean that we are better than the other. This is not what we say, but the researchers say that this is the case. But and this matter is not properly used nowadays, and that's the reason why we are not. It doesn't tell us where we are at the moment. If the artichoke is going to be prior, the artichoke is right now the Spanish artichoke, not the artichoke of our own localists. So I like, as we are talking about the table, but until when the food comes to the table, it's very much important. We want to learn. I really am so fed up with the product that goes to Islam. And I said that I am going back and I returned to my grandmother's province, which is Izmir, in order to actually get closer to the product. And the reason why I'm not now in a voyage where I'm trying to find the best products at the main ancient seats. In Istanbul, for instance, in the area of the fisherman regions, and where I wanted to make my restaurant in the fisherman area in Istanbul, and now I would like to make my restaurant in Kemeraltı of Izmir. Why? Because it is easier to get in touch with the product, and the culture as well is very much important. The artisans' restaurants. So finding the duck chickpeas in Kemeraltı, for instance, in Izmir, in the center of Izmir, is something very much extinct right now. Yes, in houses we eat good food. Yes, relatively yes, but we even lose it because the quality of our product is weakening. Yes, we definitely need a Ministry of Gastronomy, and we need to think about what the Ministry of Tourism has to do. But if we do not have a good agricultural policy, then we will not find any product to make a good dish. I don't think that I am. Don't be surprised of my apocalyptic way of talking, but we need to think about these systems. If you just turn your face and see how the product is produced, what you see is not really nice. And if this is the case, so we give this example of Italy or Spain, and come to Greece, for instance, in this climate. It is only us who is not actually owning its agriculture at all. So all the countries that we name right now, the most important features of them is because they are evaluating their product properly. They own their product and they are evaluating it in the best way. For instance, if you cannot find the Dardanelle tomato, you cannot make shepherd's salad. It's just a plastic similarity or a replica of what you eat, of what is real. In July, when my gastronomy students should know that the Dardanelle tomato only is seasonal on July and not on January. So we need to talk also a little bit about education. So I do not like the approach from top to down, because what we definitely need is a long-term strategy. We need to make long-term strategies right now when we think about educational training. There are, we can check out those countries that do it good. We definitely should be trained in order to be a cook. 75% of the cooks are leaving the jobs because They are just winning that gastronomy, and they are just actually getting trained there with and become unemployed.
Pratik yaptığı ama akademisyen olmak isteyenin de
But those who want to be an academician definitely has to be graduated from the academia and change the forms of it. When I talk about training, I would like to say training on the business. On the work. Everything that we say is just another subject for another panel, I believe. When we say that we need to work more, in my own example, I should say that the students who have been educated in gastronomy, if the student wants to have an apprenticeship in a good restaurant, we need to also distinguish a good restaurant and a luxury restaurant. It can be a wonderful artisan's restaurant as well. If there is no good artisan's restaurants, then there are fine dining restaurants or gastronomic restaurants. It is the toppest part of the pyramid, and you do not have to have hundreds and thousands of it. But in each district, you should find different types of artisan restaurants where you can eat a wonderful lentil soup. Before I moved to Izmir, I lived in Beyoğlu, Istanbul. And in Beyoğlu, there are plenty of restaurants you can eat. But when I cannot drink a lentil soup, there was one day that I couldn't drink a good lentil soup. Then I said that there's something wrong in this country right now going on, because I cannot drink a good lentil soup. Because even in the household, we are now at the verge of not eating the best dishes. In particular, in big cities, cooking in households became a problem. And it is bothering us all. Of course, we think that the gastronomy tourists are creating an economy in a country, but how to attract them? I'm checking out Ebru right now. I'm looking at her. She has wonderful statistics, and she can talk about these statistics. Thai restaurants, for instance, the Thai government, we are generally seeing the Northern European examples. Of course, there are state-handed different examples going on there. But on the other side, I believe that the Thai example is enormous, is wonderful. What did they do? They selected countries that are making gastronomy tourism. And one by one, when we were in London, we said the English should not have their own restaurant. We would either go to a Thai restaurant or a Chinese restaurant. And in a sudden, if you ate Thai in London, then you decide to go to Thailand as well. So they all are one part of the same strategy. So would the people eat mantı? Mantı has become really bad in Turkey. If this is converted in such a bad way, because your wheat is not good, because your yogurt is not good, because the dairy is not good, if you do not prefer using butter because it's very expensive, if something bad is occurred, nobody would eat, of course, that pastry, because they are going to compare mantı with ravioli. But Civaner, who is a a really good chief of Turkey, is both vegetarian, but on the other hand, is making a classical model of mantı, and he moves it also from Turkey to London. Nobody would call it as Turkish ravioli, but they would call it as mantı. Juvener, for instance, was selling so much mantı that that no longer is he actually making tandoori. For instance, that as a result of this, we need to leave everything aside. Yes, I might look nice, but I might do something wrong. And if I've done wrong, just it's not because that means that there's something wrong in me. We need to take out where we are doing wrong. There must be something wrong in the material. There must be something wrong in the product itself. So I think we should actually look at what we are doing.
O yüzden sizden ricam yani 3'er 4'er dakikalık tek bir soru soracağım. Oraya da çok girmeyeceğim. O süre zarfında 5 konuşmacımız var. Herkes rahat rahat kendini ifade edebilsin. Şimdi gördüğüm kadarıyla...
We have 5 speakers and they can express themselves very well. As you have mentioned, school is very crucial and also supply of the resources is again very important. And unfortunately, we are dependent on other countries and supply of the ingredients and also quality of the ingredients. This is very crucial, and education is by itself very important. And we have listed many important things. I think in this gastronomy competition, even though certain places have not too many features, those places have captured their places in this competition. And this is my question. From this onwards, what should we do? Very briefly, can you please give me some receipts, some prescriptions? For instance, Ministry of Gastronomy is like a recommendation because maybe the capital of gastronomy is Gaziantep, and so if there's capital for gastronomy, then there could be Ministry for Gastronomy as well. Nedim Bey, I'll start with you. We've started with Zekeriya Bey, but I'll give the floor to you, Zekeriya Bey, last part, and then we will close the session. Nedim, we can start with you. Well, actually, Aylin Chef has explained it everything very well. We have to criticize ourselves first and foremost.
Ben Osman'a ne zaman gitsem
Osman has already left our session, but whenever I visit his restaurant, I tell him that people come to Izmir just to eat in your restaurant. So you are adding value to Izmir in general, because even taxi driver is affected by your effort. But is everybody really caring about that? For instance, Osman gets all fish from the pier of Urla. So we have this earth market word on this slow cities concept. So in this earth market, there are many products, but those products should not be bought from 40 kilometers away. Yes, there's too many problems about deliveries, supply. We don't have the old, very delicious yogurt that we had in the past. Maybe with some great examples, artisan food examples, maybe we can reach to, I call them real food. We can reach the real food, but with some special conditions. So in Turkey, we would like to develop gastronomy tourism. This is our first approach. Maybe the magic word is real there. So all the chefs, all people here, if they chase after real food, this will be very, very good. But for instance, when I check the prices of olive oil, some early harvest olive oil is already launched to the market. So a classical chef can't buy the olive oil with these prices. In the Eastern Anatolia, we say that we'd like to make Eastern Anatolian Aegean cuisine alive, but the indispensable part of the cuisine is olive oil. If chef finds it very difficult to buy olive oil, and we know that all the chefs of a restaurant has become a procurement manager as well, I'm sure you're going to approve what I say, because everyone acts as if they are managers. Because a restaurant owner says that you have 5,000 euros and you are going to have 1,000 customers, and with this amount of money you will be serving food and drink, and you will be also serving tea and coffee. So what can a chef do under these circumstances? So I've checked and I've discussed the taste of Italian and Greek olive oil for many years with other people, but I think we have the best olive oil in the world. And how can we buy that olive oil with these prices? And Ibrahim has also mentioned that in the gastronomy tourism, we need state policies. Yes. As of this moment, we have the Ministry of Culture and Tourism. I think gastronomy is one of the rare fields that tourism and culture can come together. And very seriously, these policies should be announced with a manifest. In the past, there were workshops about gastronomy, culture. We were there and we were discussing our problems, but when it comes to practicality, we don't have anyone. Because everyone here on the practicality side are chefs and local shop owners and local restaurants, local craft restaurants, so they should be informed correctly. And also, I don't know really, but it could be Ministry of Gastronomy or else it could be something else, but maybe we should have a certain label saying real food is sold here in this restaurant in Turkish and English. Believe me, that's rest assured that the behavior of the customers will change, but it should be real. If it is something like geographical trademark, and for instance, in Kastamonu, 100 tons of wheat, special einkorn wheat is produced. In Turkey, it is 10,000. But it's not, but it's only raised in Kastamonu. I mean, we can't have 100,000, but we still have this geographical trademark, and we are very assertive, by the way. And I will look olive oil. That geographical indication. Some brands have this geographical indication mark, but they are not real Ayvalık olive oil. I'm really opening some claims about them. So certain sanctions, penal sanctions, should be increased. This is very important. In gastronomy tourism, first and foremost, quality material, quality ingredients, real food must be used, and we should be providing this real food to our domestic and international tourists. We have to finalize the session. They said that Gaziantep is the capital of gastronomy. Okay, I respect, but it's not the capital for me. Okay, I'm sure I knew that you would be reacting, you would be objecting to that. Okay, I respect wholehearted. I really love Gaziantep culinary, but for saying capital of gastronomy, this is too much. This is too much as well. No, I mean.
Sırayı kızarlar. Hiç kimse gastronominin başkentiyim ben demiyor. Çünkü herkesin kendine ait başka
No city, Zaragoza or Sicily or Rome, they said that I am the capital of gastronomy. For instance, Lyon is the best cuisine in France, but in Marseille, again, there's better cuisine than Paris, but they don't say I'm the capital of gastronomy. But we can say this. In Izmir, we say that eat healthy, live healthy. And it's through Izmir cuisine. This is something that we create for ourselves as a privilege. I think this is a way to catch more tourists. If you come to Izmir, you can eat healthy, you can live healthy. I would speak more, but okay, now stop. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. We don't have too much time. Thank you very much. Nuray, I'll give the floor to you. I'd like to add a few things. I think you can hear me now. Yes, we can hear you now. Okay. I'd like to address to previous speakers' mentions as well. Ahmet and Osman I've already touched upon the importance of education, and as an academician, I'd like to say a few words about that. As they've stated before, and we have many universities, departments of gastronomy for 4 years, and also for 2 years, schools for cooking. And in Turkey, there are 6 to 8 4-year colleges and 2 years vocational schools for chefs. And 4,000 students graduated in the last year. Of course, these departments have big problems like finance-related problems. Unfortunately, they don't have implementation areas in many schools. I am a lecturer in Safranbolu tourism faculty. They are very lucky because our rector attaches great importance to this topic. Even 20 people can have their implementation at the same time. We have these spaces, but in certain schools, they don't have this sufficient possibilities. And in academy as well, we are lacking of certain lecturers. We don't have qualified trained lecturers. Mainly, tourism background persons are employed in schools as lecturers. Personally, yes, I can tell you that education is very important, but I can also tell you this is a master-apprentice relation that can only pave the way for the development of the profession, for the tourism implementation, internship, and also showing and doing. This is very crucial, but as it's been pointed out, there could be certain problems on the internship periods. Students could not meet their expectations. Maybe they are oriented to this profession because it has become too popular. There are many TV programs on television, there are many shows. They are directed to this profession, and some of them are really enjoying what they do. But the monthly wages and also long working hours, even during the internship period, students are getting a bit distant from the sector. These are some problems. And other than that, I'd like to make a few additions in certain other topics. Yes, Turkey is a very rich gastronomic country. It has big potential, and based on the research, experiencing Turkish food are ranked on the 4th and 5th motivational place for foreigners. So in that respect, this is very crucial. But because of my own working field, I can also touch upon the importance of wine and wine industry. This is very crucial for the future of Turkish gastronomy because in Turkey, we have a great history of wine. As Nedim Bey has stated, stories are very crucial. When we look at Turkey, it goes back to 5000 BC. And also Noah's Ark, for instance, it could also go back to that date. In Torah, for instance, there are certain verses, and Dionysos, for instance, is from this region. So we have to be explaining winery and wine of our country. We have to be prioritizing the stories about these food items because it is complementary to food, alcoholic drinks, wine, especially German and also the English, the Russian. These are the main market of Turkey. In these countries, wine consumption rate is high. For instance, 20 million hectoliter are consumed, and it is 35 to 40 liter consumption of wine per person. So we can also utilize our potential due to certain macro problems in winery. We have certain problems, but we should not underestimate the potential of our country because we have 1,200 grape kinds and 135 producers actively produce wine, and some countries, by the way, generate too much income out of winery. In Australia, in 2020, 5.5 million people visited wine houses and $6 billion has been generated. And also there are certain attempts like roads of wine and grapes. For instance, there are some wineries in Thracian region and also Ulam in Aegean region. And also historic routes are very crucial. Certain wine roads in terms of historical connections from Hisareli to Kıyıköy, wines were transported then with ship from Venice. We were importing wine. So we should be explaining the stories. If we can put it on the forefront, we can also get a great effect because wine is a complementary product in gastronomy, and we have certain festivals. And again, another issue
gastronomi turizmi aslında
is that good gastronomy tourism enriches the gastronomy value chain. So this is how I perceive it. There's this background of this issue. For instance, there are some producer business places and educational places, and gastronomy income could also be distributed to other fields. And at the very end, I believe economy could be developed much more. And also, no one has mentioned the part about souvenirs, because when we go to a place, we of course buy something as souvenirs, and food is very important for us. Yes, we like to consume some special food peculiar to that region. We always check what to eat. We also check what to buy as souvenirs. So if people go to Gaziantep, for instance, they buy baklava, and in Aegean region also people buy some special products as souvenirs, and I think it can create an income and for the other sectors as well. Okay, so what should we do? And in order to give answer to this question, support of the government, this is very crucial, because in terms of gastrodiplomacy, Thailand and Korea, when we have a look at these countries, we can say that governments are very much effective giving the support. And also, there are some Thai restaurants, as you all know. There are certain entrepreneurs having Thai restaurants in different countries. Governments subsidize and the governments endorse them, because if the food is cooked with its original ingredients, then real taste can be revealed. For that reason, state governments are supporting these places in abroad by sending the materials with some easiness. And also there are some gastrodiplomatic efforts in other countries. So country could be promoted through restaurants. So another answer to what to do, I'm sure it's made, but maybe number of the
2012'de yanlış hatırlamıyorsam
tasting days could be increased, and there was a campaign. I guess it was in 2012. Turkish coffee was promoted, marketed in eastern coast of the United States. There is the culture again behind coffee. It must also be explained, and we also say that coffee, you can also have the fortune telling, etc. There are certain traditions behind Turkish coffee, and maybe some international cooks could be invited to Turkey, and we could cook together with those chefs. Spain, for instance, are prioritized with their chefs. By the way, Spain has this huge gastronomic influence because they have a very strong food industry. So our local products that are representing our country should be raised, and they should also be used in these meals. So chefs should have this innovative approach, and they should cook this traditional food, and maybe we can be promoted all around the country, all around the world. And I believe the Turkish people living in other countries like Germany can have advantages.
şekilde hazırlanırsa da Türk mutfağının ve Türk gastronomisinin gelişmesinde de
So I believe they all will bring a great contribution.
Eminim sıralayacaksınız ama zamanı da açtık, biraz sarkacağız.
Teşekkür ederim.
But we exceeded our time. That's the reason why. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Abra. I would like to give the floor to you as well. Seems likely that we do not have time, but I would like to thank each and every one of you because you have, I think that everybody said what is necessary to say. I think that the gastronomy tourism is an actually conclusion, and all of the value chains have to be tackled one by one, singularly. This is the most important thing, I believe. Miss Aydin, what would you like to say?
Ne yapılmalı aşamasında
So what to be done? I think that we need to be organized locally. Very briefly, I would like to give you an example, and Tarkem is an actually sample here in İzmir, Kemeraltı. A very important development organization is happening now. And it's also a very integrative, a very holistic way of an approach, because they are not only constructing the old and renovating the old buildings, but also developing the restaurants. It's such an organization that everybody is involved in it. It's wonderful. So when we talk about locals, it's not something that a few people are doing. It has been seeded and planned. It has been seeded locally, reaching up onto the capital. Because we Turkish people do really like to have a subject, and when we talk about to develop, then you start to develop everywhere you want to. If you make a small transformation, it's like a stone that has been thrown to the sea, that it is growing and growing and growing every day. Thank you very much. Wonderful depictions, Mr. Zakaria. Yes, it was a wonderful session, and I would like to thank each and every one of you. Of course, you are very much, you know your jobs very much, and you can talk everything about this matter in a very holistic way. So I see that there are a lot of things that have to be done. What would you like to add? What can we do? I expect so many things in Izmir, having so wonderful people coming together and bringing up wonderful ideas. We are living in such a rich city, a rich area, region. I would like to thank each and every one of us who have made a contribution. Wonderful things have been said, and we are all getting benefit from this. If we do not convert it into country policy, because tourism has a great impact in the incomes of a country, and gastronomy has to be evaluated just like this. Mr. Nedim has said, the gastronomy tourism has reached out to 22%. And the income that this tourism brings is contributing very much, because the people who are spending money are those who, these people are spending a lot to gastronomy, because we are following it. We know it, that in some restaurants, we do have it also in our country. We don't have a Michelin star restaurant, but take a look in Europe. You have to take an appointment 2 or 3, 4 months ago in order to eat in that restaurant. Why can't we do it? Why? Because the reason is that we couldn't convert it into a country policy. That's the reason why Mr. Osman has said, yes, education, training is very much important. Indeed, we need to strengthen we need to strengthen training, but we need to work together also. Different types of things in the field, for instance. We need to teach where, for instance, the butter has to be bought from. That's the reason why we need masters. And I guess Ms. Aydin has explained it. If you do not have an agricultural policy, if you cannot find tomatoes any longer, and if you cannot have your Turkish lentils, then what's the use, you know? And that's the reason why wining and dining is a culture in Turkey. But why don't you agree with me? You will never find a restaurant where you can drink wine at all in Anatolia. The tourist wants to go to wine and dine, but there's no wining and dining right now. There's no restaurant where wine has been sold. That's the reason why we need to convert into a different aspect. We need to check out tourism. We need to see gastronomy as a variety, as a diversity, and that is going to support the country's the income. A person, if we have a chef who has opened up a restaurant in abroad, how can we support that person? We need to say that this chef is promoting our country. And in Izmir as well, if we have an important restaurant or a chef, then we, primarily myself, my friend, and all of our managers, have to go and say and come forward saying that, what can we do for you? How can we support you? So if we take a look to this matter from this aspect, if we can convert it into a policy strategy, if we can support it with training and education, with our establishments and facilities, and also our academy, then I suppose that we can achieve it. The gastronomy is not only the taste, the flavors that we bring, it is a great, there's a great amount of an umbrella here. So you need to think about the farmer, the logistics, the driver that is making the logistics. And I have read somewhere
şeylerle ilgili Kanada'da mı bir şeyimiz var, kabuklu deniz ürünleri var. Onları pişirmek için herkesin evinde onları pişirebilecek tencere.
The shelled seafood, for instance, in order to actually cook it, everybody has a certain pan in order to cook that shelled sea food. That's a very important, actually, sector, helping many other sectors. So you have to spend time for this in order to create a development in that manner. And all local administration and also the central administration should find ways to create a strategy and to find ways to create a story for the promotion of the country. That a gastroarchaeology department can be also supported. If we can write down a story about this, then it will make a great change, I believe, in this country within this context. In Izmir, we have more than 30 establishments. We have wonderful establishments, as Mr. Nedim has declared. We are living in one of the most beautiful regions, and I say it sincerely. This region is wonderful, and the best flavors, the tastes are found here. Now, not countries are not competing. It's the cities that are competing. And in Izmir, as you know, everybody knows that this is a city that is very much admired. How can that develop? With the development of Miss Aynur, with Miss Ebru, with Mr. Ebru, Miss Aylin, and every one of us. So, by integrating everything together, people say that we do love each other, but that has to be more sincere.
Emek sarf etmiş insanlara Allah'ınızı severseniz hangi bir zaman Aylin Hanım'a bir ödül verdik ya?
Which one of us gave, for instance, a reward to Miss Aylin or to Mr. Osman? Because they made such a contribution to our country. What can we have? When did we ask a question? What can we do for you? Or we can maybe make a tax exemption, saying that you're working day and night, etc. Because gastronomy is not similar to other sectors. If you do not cook your soup, then it won't serve at all, because the noon service is different and the breakfast is different, dinner is different. There are so many people working in this field and paying a lot of effort, and we definitely have to support the people who created a brand, and we should also create new brands. For instance, doner is a product that is well known in Europe. When we say doner, people think that it is a Turkish dish. So why is not doner supported by those who are wonderfully representing it in the best way? So why not supporting them? If we are going to have a share in the sector, we need to first give something and then in return receive something. That's why I'd like to thank all of my friends who have paid their effort. And as the managers of the sector, we should create targets and find ways to do everything better. And with Mr. Nedim, we are going to come together. We are going to make studies with culture, gastronomic culture. It's an important sector. It's a nice sector. That's the reason why when Mr. Mehmet Ali said in this forum, what would you like to talk about? Which part would be effective? They asked me, and I said gastronomy is a part where I can actually put a contribution.
Bunu genişleterek İzmir'i de kentimizi de dünyada bir marka haline getirmiş bir ülke olarak gastronomiyi de
as gastronomy and also the side branches of gastronomy should be found. We should create a target for this. We need to create diversity in this area. That's why, as the president of the Artisans Union and Association, I precisely know how hard this business is. And as being a brand and to distribute yourself and promote the country all around the world, we can actually have different types of studies, and we will do as the association whatever it takes to support you. And hopefully we can come together once again, and I would like to deliver my appreciation for you. It was a very integrative speech. Thank you very much. I hope that in the next forum, many of the things you declared can become real. I have a wish here, or a demand, let me say, just before we close. I tell all of you, to all of the presenters, Ms. Nuray, Mr. Osman, let us come around the table. Let us come around the table. Let us come together and meet. I will be more than happy to be with you. Determine the date and let's do it. We live in the same city with the president, but we see each other not that often.
İzmir sofrası kuralım. İzmir sofrasında buluşalım.
Let us have an Izmir table. All together. Let us come together. Of course. Thank you very much. I will give you now the floor to, I would like to thank each and every one of you. We have exceeded our time. We can talk a lot, I think, but thank you so much. And I would like to give the floor to Ms. Azam Toğuşlu. Dear participants in front of the screen, so we have watched the closing session of today, and we watched the closing session of the forum titled The Magnet of Tourism Gastronomy, which was held under the session sponsorship of the Union of Chambers and of Tradesman and Craftsmen. And the session moderator was Buse Biçer Akbaş, author of Dünya newspaper. And we would like to thank our distinguished speakers, Nedim Atilla, Ebru Koralı, Zekeriya Mutlu, Osman Sezener, Professor Dr. Nuray Türker, and Aydin Yazıcıoğlu. And for 5 days with expert speakers, we have been talking about how we protect the fragile world, the 2050 target and explores in a zero carbon, from linear economy to circular economy, business models change the direction with digitalization. How will the world transformed by agriculture 12,000 years ago be fed? From Neolithic age to new generation agricultural systems, the root of thought, future end-to-end transformation. What kind of future does the concept of next generation cities prepare? The rebirth of 2 million years old Geddes magnet of tourism, gastronomy. Well, the future perspectives are also considered, and so as we are doing the closing of the Aegean Economic Forum, I would like to thank the Aegean Economic Forum that has been held by the Aegean Economic Development Foundation and Ganji Group. I would like to thank also the Izmir Metropolitan Municipality and especially our strategic partners, Izmir Chamber of Commerce, Aegean Exporters Association, İzdoğa, and our session sponsors, Izmir Industrials and Businessmen Association, Izmir Commodity Exchange, Aegean Industrialists and Businessmen Association, the Union of Chambers of Tradesmen and Craftsmen of Izmir, our main sponsors, Çimentaş Group, Aegean Region Chamber of Industry, Aegean Young Businessmen Association, Aegean Freezer Founder and Incorporator, Pınar, Willow Turkey, and Zorlu Holding. And also, I would like to thank the live broadcast sponsor, Dünya newspaper, our media relations sponsor, Basel Communication Group, and our press sponsor to the Gözlem newspaper. Thank you very much for your valuable contribution. And also to you, our valued participants who follow us. You have been following us for 5 days with great interest. Thank you for putting forward valuable